Another much derided MCU film takes center stage today. Did it deserve the ridicule, or is it a diamond in the rough? Find out when Johnnie Torch reviews The Marvels. Welcome back to another Johnnie Torch review, and today we're taking on The Marvels, which is the Captain Marvel sequel, and also, I guess, technically the sequel to WandaVision and the sequel to Ms. Marvel. I'm your host, Johnnie Torch, here with you once again. And I didn't see this one live in theaters like many people didn't. Again, for me, this was more of an issue of it just came out at the wrong time. It was in November, and it gets to be hectic near the holiday season. Too much stuff going on. I probably would have tried to see this one in theaters if it was out in August or sometime during the summer. I don't know. It's kind of like the fate of Madam Web. I originally was going to go see that. I mean, I don't really care about bad word of mouth. I think a film should get the benefit of the doubt. But with Madam Web was similar. It's kind of a hectic time, and they didn't seem to be presenting anything that was really that exciting. Now, is this film as awful as everybody was saying it was? Is kind of the shtick going on around Twitter now, because a lot of people have seen it now that it's on Disney Plus. Some people may have ventured to buy the DVD sight unseen, like I did, and they're saying, "Well, it's not really that bad." This is going to be a spoiler review, but if you just want sort of the spoiler-free, bare basic review, I feel like this is, and I said this on Twitter, I think this film should have been called Try Hard the Movie. Because it feels a lot like they really had some potential here to work with, but they were so afraid that people were not going to really be interested in these characters. I mean, let's face it, Captain Marvel, her reputation has gone down 1,000-fold. Monica Rambeau, nobody really knows her outside of the hardliners, the diehard comic fans. They know that she was the original female Captain Marvel, and that Carol was the original Ms. Marvel. Now we have Ms. Marvel, which is Kamala Khan, which, again, nobody really likes the newer crop of Marvel heroes, the America Chavez's, the Kamala Khan's. So I think they felt this was going to be a tough sell. So what they decided to do was they chopped out a lot of the more meaty material and just went for the action, just gave the action beats. And this is a blessing and a curse, because in a way, the film is short. It's an hour and 45 minutes, which by today's standards is pretty short. I mean, most superhero movies will be at least 2 hours in length, possibly longer. So a lot of them go into like 220, 2.5 hours. This one breezes along at a steady clip. I didn't feel that my time was wasted. I never got bored, at least to the point of, looking at my watch metaphorically. And I don't know. I think it's difficult to say whether the film succeeds or not based on that. Now, me personally, I prefer the character moments. I prefer getting into the plot and understanding what's going on. Not so much here. All right, so we'll get into some of the details here, some of the spoiler stuff. So you've been warned if you're interested in coming into this film cold. The first problem was I don't feel like we get to know Carol as a person. When we seen her in the original movie, she had a really great backstory. It was really interesting. She was surrounded with really interesting characters. But post that movie, all we know about her is that she's sort of a trailer park gal in space. She's an intergalactic trailer park gal. She hangs around in space. listening to her mind manipulation software, whatever that was. And it just feels like we don't really get to know her as a person. And there's a lot of weighty issues that comes her way during this movie, and they're really brushed off superficially. That's my biggest complaint. Another problem being the villain of the piece. I think her name was Dar Ben. I should, yeah, Dar Ben. This has got to be the most inconsequential villain in the storied MCU history. I mean, it seems as if they know that the complaint against the MCU has always been, well, many of the villains are sort of threadbare. The motivations really aren't there. They just sort of, want to be the bad guy. In this one, they seem to set the groundwork for it being a much more personal vendetta between this villain and Captain Marvel. But it really goes absolutely nowhere. I mean, the actress is game. She does a few mean grimaces, but there's no sense of, say, Ronan the Accuser. Some people have accused him of being a lightweight too. I mean, his motivations is basically he wants to return the Kree Empire to its former glory. All right, you can just work with that as long as you have an imposing figure. And Ronan was an imposing figure, but I don't think anybody was going to be scared of Dar Ben. She comes off as more sort of just, petulantly whiny. She didn't really particularly strike fear into the hearts of any, and some could do that. I mean, Hela was a villain in Ragnarok that accomplished that without having to be, a literal heavy like Ronan. But it just doesn't seem to get there, and we'll get more to that near the end. But talk about some of the characters first. Monica Rambeau, the actress, I thought was quite well. I liked her a lot in WandaVision, so seeing her again and being able to develop this character was a lot of fun. In this case, this is another situation where I don't think they really played the meat of the dilemma quite as strongly as they could have. Now, this is another case where it's sort of hanging over Carol's head that she hasn't gone back to Earth. Of course, Monica is sort of her adopted niece. She was besties with her mother. And of course, her mother has passed on now because it's been about, I don't know, 25 years or something. And Monica is, sort of harboring some resentment that Carol never came back, and her entire childhood was missed because of it. And Carol kind of has her reasons. Again, we'll get to that in a second. I'm trying to take these character by character, but and they kind of like try to play it up as if this is going to be some real, heavy throwdown of emotions and this and that. It doesn't really get there though. It feels a lot like this is just like Monica sort of has to unburden herself of this, but Carol doesn't really seem to bear any of that weight that she did this to Monica. It's kind of, again, this is the big emotional beat of the film, I think, and it really just falls flat. And that's kind of what the problem is with a lot of these scenarios that we go through. Now, another one here, we have Ms. Marvel. The actress, again, I don't have the cast list in front of me. She's very good. A lot of people claim that, she's the highlight of the picture. I could see both sides of it. She's very endearing as sort of the geeky kid. She idol worships Captain Marvel. She really wants to be part of the superhero scene, and she has the powers to sort of be a player in the MCU. And the other side of it, though, is she's kind of you know uh, borderline annoying, I think, with some of the I don't know, some of the antics she gets up to, basically trying to do things and not quite really knowing what she's doing. Again, it's greatest American hero stuff. It's fine. She was good. I'm not trying to belittle her part in the film. She was good. And again, we have more weighty issues that she brings to the table that, for whatever reason, they did not want to develop. Now, the scenario in the film is when Kamala comes into the story, and they're trying to help the Skrulls because there's a Kree Skrull civil war still going on, and the Kree are attacking the Skrulls in their encampment, so to speak, because they're moving on from place to place, kind of as nomads in the galaxy, which we saw a little of in Secret Invasion, which leads up to this. Again, something we'll get to momentarily. But as the Kree are attacking the Skrull are like panicking, and they're all going their separate ways to avoid the attack. And Captain Marvel has like one spaceship where she takes about 50 Skrull in, and Ms. Marvel is sort of taken aback at the fact that they're leaving some people behind during this attack, and they're saving just basically a fraction of the people. And shouldn't the superheroes be doing everything they can? Now, this was an interesting dilemma because Carol, of course, is a military officer, and was probably trained in the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Attack what you can, save what you can, and then get out of it. And that's kind of what they do. And Captain Marvel sort of just cuts her short and is like, we're doing all we can now. Get in here. We're getting out of here. They don't really deal with the implications of that. Now, you really could have built on this, and you could see from Kamala's point of view how being a superhero isn't all it's cracked up to be, that there's hard choices to be made. It's not just we're going to save everybody. She could resent Carol for taking that position and putting her in that position where she has to turn her back on needy people who are, being attacked. But they sort of just, shake hands and make up pretty quickly on the ship. And Carol's like, well, I'm sorry I spoke to you that way. And Miss Marvel still has the stars in her eyes about Captain Marvel. And again, there's really no attempt in this film to try to unearth some real gems of storytelling. And again, it depends on what you're looking for in a film. Now, this is more light and breezy, and I can understand where maybe they didn't want this to be a heavy film. But again, as a writer, I have to think that there was some great stuff that they could have done with some of these characters and some of these situations. A lot of it is wasted. We have Samuel L. Jackson returning as Nick Fury. Now, as I said, a Secret Invasion was supposed to lead up to this. And as some reviewers or commenters have mentioned, this doesn't feel like it organically follows up Secret Invasion. Now, Secret Invasion was like a more serious storyline. And here, Nick Fury basically is just there to spout off some witticisms, really. I won't go so far as to say that Samuel L. Jackson mails it in. He still gives an interesting performance given what he's got to work with. But again, the whole storyline of Secret Invasion, what he's trying to do to help the Skrulls, he's been doing this for several years now. His wife is a Skrull, and she's also on this ship with him, and so on and so forth. None of that is touched on. He's basically there just to sort of give a pep talk, move the plot along, and it really is just a paycheck for Samuel L. Jackson. There is definitely no heavy lifting required for him here. If you're going into the film hoping for some kind of continuation of the Secret Invasion storyline, you're going to be woefully disappointed. And so we have the final conflict here that I've been setting aside, which is apparently Captain Marvel destroyed what is it called? The Kree Supreme Intelligence or something like that, which is their AI brain that basically gives the Kree the orders of what to do. And so by destroying the Kree's artificial intelligence leader, Carol sort of plunges the Kree Skrull civil war into chaos and into just amping it up and making it a horrible ordeal. And that is supposedly what the personal business between Dar-Ben is with Carol. it just doesn't feel like there's any weight to that. We get like 90 seconds of her feeling remorseful and rolling a tear and how she was wrong. But again, this isn't something we see particularly weighing on her during the film. And we don't really see the festering resentment from Dar Ben. She's sort of just there as the mustache twirling villain. We don't really feel it in her guts, really. I mean, take Ricardo Montalban as Khan in Wrath of Khan, and you'll know what I mean. That's the kind of villain that it's been building up in him for so long. This revenge and this quest for revenge. The Ahab and the White Whale story. We've heard it 1,000 times, particularly in Star Trek, because they always go back to that storyline because it works so well for Wrath of Khan. But you don't really feel that here. It's like there's no real personal relationship between Dar-Ben and Carol, and when push comes to shove, it's sort of just like it's just good guy versus bad guy. It doesn't really feel like it has any resonance in any of the resolution here. Okay, we got some comical scenes. Like I said, this was apparently attempted to be like a lightweight film, like not too heavy. Another incident that I thought could have used a little bit more spotlight is apparently Carol is married to some prince guy. What's his name? Prince Yan on the planet of Song. A lot of people didn't like this, that it was corny or whatever, that they had to sing, during conversation or something. I thought it was quite funny. I thought that's how you successfully lighten up a movie. When you have, that's what you need really, is the contrast between the darks and the lights. And again, to point out another movie, look at Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man 2 has great contrasts of dark and light. There's some funny stuff going on with Peter. There's some darker stuff going on with Doc Ock, darker stuff with Harry, and then it kind of all comes to a blow. But it's like, with this film, they really didn't want to focus in on any of kind of the more darker nature of things. When it comes to the marriage, it's described as a marriage of convenience. Again, this is something else that I thought we could have looked into a little more. Didn't have to be a heavy subject. I didn't think they were really going to go there. That, well, she's got a husband, right? Doesn't she? They also throw in, what's her name, Valkyrie, and of course it's all but suggested that there's a romantic flicker between the two of them, which I guess they were trying to go for, but they cut it down to the bare minimum because we can't have Captain Marvel have any interest in the male gender. And again, this is something that could have been. I mean, what does she see this husband guy as? Is he sort of just a means to an end? What does she see that this is accomplishing for her? What is this accomplishing for him? What is this accomplishing for his people? We really don't get into any of that. It's sort of like, well, that's a story for another time. That's sort of the Disney way, like with The Force Awakens. Well, that's a story for another time. And you'd never get into that story, and you kind of get the feeling that story is pretty interesting. I think we probably should focus on it because it really would be better than a lot of the stuff we see in the movie. But, they never focus on it. The other humorous scene, and again, that scene is like, or that, segment of the film is so brief, it really doesn't take a chance to root. You know what I mean? They give her some snazzy suits, the three of them, their snazzy suits, and it sort of just moves on from there. It really wasn't even necessary. Something else I mentioned on Twitter, which is worth mentioning here, is I have to feel for Brie Larson. Now, Brie Larson, beyond the fact that she became like the most hated actress in fan circles because of her attitude and some of the things she said. And if anybody knows me, knows the same thing to me as with Amber Heard. I just want to see her performance. I don't care what she has to say. I don't care what she does in her personal life. Just give me a good performance. She didn't have much to work with here. She does well enough, but she didn't have much to work with here. But they seriously did her dirty when it came to like hair and makeup and stuff. She looks so much better in Captain Marvel than she does here. And by contrast, Monica Rambeau looks like she's come out of a beauty parlor in every scene. I mean, she's just made up to look gorgeous. And as the star of the picture, I guess allegedly as the star of the picture, Brie Larson, she should have someone she should have someone fired because she basically looked like she was rolled out of bed every scene. And I don't say this to be mean, other than like I said, Brie Larson's a reasonably attractive woman. There's no reason for them to have not really at least attempted to do something flattering to her. And I think the dance scene where she's turned into like a princess or whatever for a few seconds is the only time she really looks great. Um, Arguably, I'd say at the end, maybe when she's in the fighter plane or whatever with Kamala, she's kind of looks pretty good there. But it just seems like to me, as an actress, I would have probably talked to my agent at that point because it just didn't seem right. The other whimsical scene, of course, that everybody talks about is the cats, the alien cats. Now, this is something that goes back to the first film, Goose, and it was funny, you know, when it was the first cat to do this. Now it's multiplied by like I don't know, 300 cats, and the only way to abandon ship on their spaceship to save everyone is if the cats eat a person and hold on to that person, retain that person until they get to Earth, and then spit them out. Which I don't know. I mean, I don't know how to take this. They play, uh, I guess it was Barbara Streisand doing Cats, the theme song to Cats, Memories, which it brought a chuckle. I thought it was amusing. A lot of people, you know, can't take that kind of stuff. I thought it was funny. I didn't really have any problems with it, but the the sheer craziness of it. I mean, trying to say a 200-pound guy is somehow eaten by a an 8-pound cat or something, and you know you just got to go with it. You know what I mean? You got to roll with it, and it didn't bother me. It's it's science fiction. It's craziness. Just have fun with it. So in the end, it ends on a cliffhanger. We have Monica Rambeau has to sacrifice herself to sort of heal up the hole in the universe that Darben made to try to destroy the Kree. I don't know what she was doing, to be totally honest with you. A lot of the storyline you just have to go with. That's basically the problem with this film. Now maybe I wasn't paying close enough attention, but some of those things it just goes by in a line of dialogue. Now I don't really know what her plan was. Apparently Carol ends up destroying the Kree sun, which ends up saving the planet. That's what I mean. Stuff like that. I guess I would need to have a rewatch to really understand what's going on. Ditto. This is kind of the reason why these three are roped together. We didn't mention yet, but the power switching thing. Once somebody uses their powers, one of the other two will switch places with them. Why? I'm not entirely sure. Does it happen every time? No. Why? I'm not entirely sure. And it's just another one of those things where you kind of have to go with it. Now there is, some explanation given. I can't really give you that explanation verbatim because I'm not sure I completely understood it. But that's kind of what ties these characters together. And I thought, honestly, my favorite part of the movie is when they're doing, a training montage where they're all trying to learn how to use it to their advantage. We've got to use our powers. Okay, when I use it, Monica's going to appear here. And, so they're like balancing things on their head so they know that when they switch places, they can still balance it. They're throwing a ball in the air so they can catch it and, jumping rope and all this stuff. And it was actually very good because, it showed that they had some thought put into what they were going to try to do, that they weren't just kind of continually, as it was originally, just keep messing up because they can't help but use their powers. And then, the fact that they actually apply themselves was pretty cool. So that was actually my favorite part of the film. I guess that's about it. I'm trying to think, but that was the other thing I was going to talk about. The parents. I guess this is another thing that I missed. Now they kept us up to speed pretty well with Ms. Marvel's backstory, because I didn't watch the show. And again, it was not like any reason like, oh, I hate Ms. Marvel, I hate Kamala Khan, I won't watch it on principle. It was just that it's like I've got only so many hours of life to do, and I can't devote hours to something I didn't really think I was going to be interested in. I honestly didn't think I was going to be interested in that show. So they keep us up to date. I didn't really know who the grown kid was. I guess that's her brother. That's another thing where I guess I missed a line of dialogue until near the end, where I guess at the end of the movie they say something about him being the brother or something. Because she looks like she's like 13, 14 years old, and he's like, looks like he's about 20. I don't know. So I didn't automatically know that's the beard is what did it. I don't know. I found the family borderline annoying, but I say that with a caveat. I think that's only because having just gotten done with Blue Beetle, where that was a big part of the story, where it was all right, the parents are there and the nutty sister and the uncle and all this and that. This is like sort of like toned down a little bit from what we got in Blue Beetle. But again, like I said, if this came first, I'd probably be like, oh, okay, there's the concerned parents and the sibling and this and that. It just felt like a retread, and so I kind of felt like, well, we don't really need to see a lot more of them. And again, they really didn't intrude on the story too much, so I guess I really can't complain about that. So that's about it. What am I going to say about this film? I think I'm going to call it meh. I don't think this was a bad film. I don't think this was overly woke, which is what I think keeps it from being a bad film. Now, my complaints about the original Captain Marvel film, usually I start the review by talking about the predecessor. I kind of save this for the end. The predecessor was woke. It was a lot of virtue signaling of, oh, women can do it, men are in the way, men are trying to hold the women down. All that stuff is gone in this. There really isn't any woke messaging. So if that's one of your concerns, that's not a problem here. You can watch this film and not feel like you're beat over the head with men are terrible and holding the women down or whatever, like Captain Marvel, the original film was. The original film also had the problems of, well, obviously there was the changing of the character. They didn't have Marvel in it, and there's like a female version of Marvel, and all that stuff was needless changes and very annoying to the longtime fan and purist of the comics. Also, there was a lot of like just wasted potential in that film too, because Jude Law, his character was ripe for being this personal antagonist that Carol really needed, that Dar-Ben wasn't. And if they had kept him around to build on his character some more, even though they ruined it in the first film, that probably would have gone a long way of giving her her own nemesis. And it would be a personal nemesis, because that's what kind of drove that film, was the fact that the Kree wanted her back and her allies were now adversaries. And they didn't even play into that much with that film, because that film was just too concerned with, oh, Carol's so great, she's so powerful, she's so strong, she's not going to have trouble with any of these people, she's not going to have trouble with Jude Law, she's just going to breeze through the whole thing. They could have fixed that movie in effect by actually bringing Jude Law back and, making him that revenge-minded antagonist. But again, it just, they still haven't really done justice to Captain Marvel. They're getting there a little bit, I guess. And like I said, this is sort of a cliffhanger ending where Monica's in another dimension. She sees her mother as a different multiverse version of her mother. And we see Beast, who is, of course, voiced by Kelsey Grammer still, I believe. And the CGI looks pretty good. I mean, we've already seen Kelsey Grammer as the Beast. It kind of felt like, why don't you just, go back to the hair and makeup and stuff? But the CGI was all right. They'll get better at it. It was sort of an early attempt, and it still looked pretty good. But this is supposed to be our introduction to the X-Men in the MCU. I guess they're keeping Beast around as Kelsey Grammer. And we're also keeping, I guess, Wolverine. We'll see how that works out in Wolverine and Deadpool or whatever that movie's going to be called. And then there's there's no end credit scene. They sort of stuck them back to back because they knew people weren't going to hang around, I guess, for the credits. But where Ms. Marvel tries to recruit Kate Bishop, Hawkeye. And again, I think they're going to try to do a Young Avengers movie. I don't know how good that's going to be or what they're going to make out of that, but there's only a few that I really care about seeing. I mean, I don't mind seeing Kate Bishop. She was all right. And Cassie Lang, maybe. But really, what else do we have? I mean, there's Ms. Marvel and there's those two. If you're going to go with, I mean, I don't want to see Wanda's kids again, really. I don't want to see the son of Hulk, because I thought that was a mistake in the first place. I just cut She-Hulk out of continuity and everything would be fine. What else is left? I mean, I don't really desire to see any of these characters. So, it kind of leaves us hanging. And apparently, I think there's been some talk with Brie Larson and the actress that plays Ms. Marvel, when are you coming back? And they are inconclusive. They haven't been told anything yet. So I'm banking on they are going to come back, but it may not be necessarily in another Marvel's film or Captain Marvel film. I think they're all contracted to come back to tie up the story, but it probably will be in some Avengers movie or possibly an X-Men movie. That's what I think will probably happen, and that's when we'll see them. Then they're probably going to go by the wayside. I'm not sure. Another thing I wanted to mention, the costuming, kind of a downgrade here. Mrs. Marvel's costume is okay. She never wears the mask, as we see in this image she's wearing. That she never wears that. Captain Marvel costume, again, it kind of is like a downgrade. It doesn't look quite as good as the first movie. I liked Monica Rambeau's costume, though. I thought that was pretty good. She has the sleeves, the puffy sleeves, or whatever that was. That I don't know what you would call it. It's kind of like a cape, but not really a cape. And she gets rid of them, toot sweet. But I thought her costume was the best of them all, Monica Rambeau's. So, again, yeah, I'm giving this one 3.5 stars out of 5. It's not overly woke. It goes by at a pretty fast pace. So you're not going to feel bored. You're not going to feel that you've wasted your time. At least I didn't. I think the biggest issue is they had a lot of meat and potatoes to play with to try to get a story going. And they just decided to go in with the action, not really lay the story down to any firm foundation, just sort of play with it, make it light and breezy. Again, that's one way to do it because you don't really want to I think they didn't want to hedge their bets that people are going to like these characters because nobody really betrays themselves as fans of these characters, so they wanted to just make it short and sweet and as simple as possible. I'm giving it a C+ and a 7 out of 10, given whatever model you like to use. It's kind of mid. It's a little bit above mid. I would probably say between this and Ant-Man 3, it's about a dead heat. I would give Ant-Man 3 the nod simply because I think it's a little bit, Paul Rudd always makes things a little bit more enjoyable. Ant-Man 3's probably got that little bit of an edge over it. But if you liked Ant-Man 3, you probably like this. If you didn't like Ant-Man 3, you probably will hate this. That's pretty much, I think that's the barometer for this. All right, so thank you for joining me for another Johnnie Torch review, reviewing the Marvels. And let me know in the comments below, what do you think? You excited about seeing these characters again? Do you think this was just a complete waste of time? Or do you think that, like I thought, it was just okay? It was, not everything is a 5-star film, and there's a place for B movies like this. Let me know in the comments below. And until next we meet, this is Johnnie Torch reminding you once again, keep the flame burning brightly, and I'll be with you again real soon.